Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 3 at the Back. We are here discussing everything that has been going on over the weekend in an excellent weekend for the newly promoted teams. It could be the first time all three have won. Could be wrong on that. And we'll come to our Premier League aficionados on my left and right to maybe disprove that, but we're back again. Make sure you're liking the comment, the videos and stuff. Everybody, make sure you're subscribing as always. Head on over to the two gentlemen either side of me's channel as well, as I'm sure you all have done anyway. But first and foremost, I think we've once again got this right. We've got Matt on the right this time, Ben on the left, Harry Potter in the middle. Benjamin Bloom, how you doing, mate?
Would you like me to start with some hyperbole, Connor?
Go on, let's do it.
This is the most confident I have felt that one of the 17 is definitely going down. Could change. I know what I'm like, but what a weekend.
Huge weekend for the newly promoted boys. Yeah, and obviously we'll delve into that, but straight off the bat, that doesn't normally happen, does it, Matt? We don't normally get Ben putting out an opinion like that. He's very Geneva, likes to sit on the fence, but look, he's brilliant. He's got a glow about him, hasn't he, this week, Matt?
He certainly does. I think he's hungry for a relegation sandwich, and I tell you what, we've got the perfect ingredients, haven't we? With Wolves and West Ham struggling so much, and yeah, as you say, Connor, how often are we going to say all three newly promoted teams have won in the same weekend?
Well, I guess we should probably start at the bottom, and then we can move on to the promoted sides because they're a little bit further up now, aren't they? So I guess we could start with Wolverhampton Wanderers, Matt, and I'm gonna bat this back to you. I think now they've been beaten by two of the promoted sides at Molineux.
Oh, yeah, no.
At Molineux. Sorry, the context. Come on, Matt, listen. Three conceded both times at Molineux. And then they've obviously lost 2-0 at Sunderland. Alarm bells ringing. Fosun and co have apparently come out and backed Vitor Pereira. They've said as well that they're going to back him in January. 2 points out of 9 games. I mean, alarm bells. I mean, I don't know if you boys saw at the end of the game as well. Strand Larsen and the fans having a bit of a go. Vitor Pereira bizarrely going up to the stand and giving it all this, which I thought might be misconstrued by some Wolverhampton Wanderers fans, and it was. And then you're having Jose Sarr, explaining to fans what's going on outside the ground. Matt, it's chaos, isn't it?
They look doomed. They really do. I mean, we obviously saw them have a tragic start last season and they recovered, but they didn't lose all three.
Sorry, mate. What are we going there? We've got 3 minutes in. Matt SB says they are doomed.
There's no way back. Hang on, Connor. I said before the season started, I thought they'd go down. So kind of pleased with that, not for the Wolves fans' sake, but I wonder if we can draw parallels between Wolves and West Ham, because we say about the London Stadium feeling empty, and I know it's a different stadium. Wolves is obviously Molineux's an iconic old school stadium, but you looked in the stands there, Connor, lots of empty seats. The Wolves fans really giving up at the minute, aren't they? And we say, if you circle the plug for a long amount of time, you will go down. And although I still think at some point they will go on a run, is it going to be too much now? And there's no easy games. I mean, we're not saying any game's easy in the Premier League, but on paper, if you're Wolves, you want to circle those promoted teams. And as you say, they've lost all 3 of them, 2 of them at Molineux as well. And I'm really worried for them going forwards. I know Strand Larsen scored, and they did get 2 against Burnley. If anything, actually, when they pulled it back to 2-2 before half-time, I thought, right.
Yeah, I thought they were going to win it. I thought they were going to win it.
Me too.
This is where they kick on. I guess, to be honest, I've got to say that if it had still finished 2-2, I'd probably be sat here saying, no, Wolves needed to win it. Yeah. But to then lose it in the way that they have, it's curtains.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you now. And naturally, being a fan of one of the newly promoted sides, you're always still a little bit anxious because you think to yourself, well, these have got the pulling power, and in January they've got a lot of money to spend. Not only that, but they have got the players to be able to dig them out of this mess, Benjamin Bloom. But I'm looking at the fixtures. I'm seeing a lot of fixtures in there, of which we've got to talk about these 9 to start off with. 3 of them are the newly promoted sides. 3 of them they've lost to. It's not exactly been a horrifically difficult start for Wolverhampton Wanderers, Ben. They're in a bit of a pickle now, aren't they? It feels.
Yeah, massively. And it's just big deja vu from last season, because Wolves were like bottoming out last season, and they lost a home game against an ex-EFL team that I'm apparently banned from mentioning on this show in stoppage time. And there was like, you're mentioning kind of like fracas at the end of the game. I remember between Cunha and I think he got a ban actually after it, if memory serves. And then I think the thing that sticks in my mind, then they changed from Gary O'Neill to Vitor Pereira and went on the sort of run that even if they go on that run now, they will survive. So I've still got that in the back of my head, despite the absence now, obviously, of Cunha, who was a real cheat code, particularly for a bottom six team. Connor, are they Fosun? Are they saying they're going to back Pereira because he signed a new contract in September and it would just cost them an absolute bomb to get rid of him? And I mean, I'm sure people in the comments will give me a handful of examples of someone signing a new contract 1 month and then being sacked 2 months later. It does happen, but it feels now that if they're not going to do that in terms of change the manager, get a new feel about it, get the boost, point it in the right direction, then it doesn't feel good at all, does it? In terms of Wolves climbing towards, and are we revising our 35-point number as well, given how well our promoted EFL3 have started?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he first and foremost, he has to go. Vitor Pereira. I'm stunned the call hasn't been made so far, but then I'm not, obviously, with that shiny new contract that was given before the Leeds United game. There's been a lack of starts, I felt, for Tolu Arokade and Fer Lopez, big, shiny new signings that came in the summer, of which haven't really had enough minutes and enough impact. Did they ever replace Ait Nouri? I don't think they did. Did they replace Cunha at all to sort of a Premier League standard? I don't think they have. They are severely lacking at this moment in time. And I feel like the only really level of which I was saying Wolves might be okay is because they're a Premier League side. But I'm watching Wolves and I'm thinking it's Championship X Factor. There's not a lot there of what I'm getting giddy about. The creativeness, the innovativeness, the guile, the X Factor. It's not really there. I think they've massively lost something, obviously, in Cunha. We've seen how good Cunha's been for Manchester United now. He is maybe more of a linchpin than we thought, even though Pereira did really well towards the back end. That could just be a moment, couldn't it? Towards the back end, there's an impact. There's a new manager over the course of a Premier League season. Starting off with, you've had a big summer in terms of players going out and players coming in. I think potentially now, and this is quite damaging for Wolves, and look, you both can come in with your thoughts here, but I think he has to go. But I think at this stage with Wolves, the damage is just already done, and I don't think.
Connor, who do you replace him with?
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I guess that's all. That's going to be the shout for any team who's in trouble at this moment in time, because it feels like those managers, maybe in that area, Dyche, etc., Nuno, and then Nuno might be in trouble as well. So it's kind of they've all been mopped up, haven't they, in terms of those like keep you up sort of managers. So feels like we've even moved away from that sort of.
But you can rule Nuno out from Wolves anyway because he's been there before. So
yeah. It's been a horrendous summer. The contractors, it feels like that's just completely hampered maybe Pereira. We always say that with players, don't we, lads? We always say like when players get given a shiny new contract, sometimes it can go down a little bit. I know it happened with Rashford. I know it's happened with multiple big players. You get that contract and suddenly performances go off kilter a little bit, and maybe that's happened with Vitor Pereira. I don't know, and the motivation.
Just kind of really quickly, mate, on the ownership, and I'll bow to maybe Matt's experiences with C2 following Coventry. Yeah. Really feels like Fosun half in, and they've been half in since they finished. I don't know, they finished seventh like 3 times in a row or something, and realised that they couldn't just bust through FFP and stack up the spending to make it work. I think in today's day and age, if you've got ownership that is not on the ground, all in, we're going to talk about West Ham. Maybe that's not necessarily fair. Maybe they've just been hapless rather than, not interested. But I'm definitely seeing that from Fosun. And is there a little bit of a sense of, just give the manager a 3-year contract, he'll deal with it, yeah?
Yeah, I think the ownership's the big problem here, isn't it? It is clearly the big problem. And as Ben always says it is that trickle-down approach, of which very nicely moves us on to West Ham United. And we're just going to try generalize a little bit and talk about these clubs obviously being, comprising the bottom three, and then we'll get into the games a little bit as well. But West Ham United losing against Leeds United on Friday night. Let's just not touch on Leeds for a second, but West Ham off the pitch and on the pitch. Matt, where do you stand with it?
Yeah, I'm really worried for them. I am. And it's heightened by the promoted teams winning because, if the gap wasn't as big, West Ham, you'd think, all right, they'll turn it around. I still have that trust in West Ham as well, a bit like with Wolves, that at some point they'll throw back-to-back wins together and all of a sudden we'll be thinking, are they on a run? I'm so surprised by the lack of bounce from Nuno coming in. I think we were all on board with this being a good appointment, but it just goes to show how damaged things are behind the scenes at West Ham. And when you really can't make your home ground a fortress, which the promoted teams have been able to do, and then, you go, I know we said it would be better for West Ham to play Leeds away than to play them at the London Stadium, but then, like I say, it was Leeds United's strong suit as well. So I'm really worried for West Ham. There's absolutely no momentum with this club at the minute, and they've been stagnant, a bit like Wolves, kind of trending down over the last couple of years, treading water. And you could draw parallels really, because Wolves had the peak with Nuno. I think they had like an FA Cup semi-final as well, and West Ham obviously won the Conference League with David Moyes, and just since then they've both been sort of gradually getting worse. And they got away with it last season because the promoted three weren't fighting as well. They didn't obviously get as close to a point per game, but this time round I'm really worried for West Ham, and lack of goal power, and just so easy to score against as well. I mean, the game was almost done after 15 minutes, Connor, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and I guess naturally we're going to have to speak about the games as well as speaking about these clubs, because it is it's the conclusion really, isn't it, to these negative sort of trends. But interestingly enough, Lucas Paqueta as well, the Times are reporting that he wants to leave in January. Alvarez, who's obviously been loaned out, which was very controversial for West Ham, apparently doesn't have a recall clause to bring him back. Issues when it comes to, I think, Scarles, the young lad who started at right back's had a successful surgery, but there's bits going on there as well. I mean, I think it was interesting. I was doing a West Ham podcast with a couple of lads, and they were saying they were talking, Ben, about home fortresses being massive in football, and I said, we target the London Stadium as newly promoted sides.
Everybody does.
It's an athletic stadium. It's not a football stadium for me, anyway, personally. And I think West Ham fans would agree with that. He said, interestingly enough, that 28,000 season ticket holders at West Ham have not renewed their season ticket at the London Stadium, which I couldn't believe. 28,000.
Sorry, in one renewal period.
Apparently, collectively, it's been 28,000 that have not come over from Upton Park to the London Stadium.
Okay, God, I thought you meant since last season.
No. But still, it's a large number, isn't it? So and then he was also saying that you've got the advantage: Sunderland, Burnley, Leeds, Everton, whoever, all these sort of historical loud grounds, Molineux, like Matt was saying earlier, etc., etc. We don't have that. So we're trying to gain this sort of momentum at home, which we'll never get. I think they've won, might be 2 games since February, but they're having to do all of the work on the road because it's so toxic at the London Stadium. You don't really think about that, do you?
Well, I suspect if you ask football fans that actually travel to away games, the most welcoming stadiums. I remember speaking to Reading fans. They always said, "Oh, people love coming to a little ride down the M4, nice stadium, easy 3 points, and away you go." But maybe other than Reading, you might put West Ham in there as the least kind of fortress stadium. I got the algorithm kind of fed me a clip of Martin O'Neill, who's had a lovely busy week, hasn't he? Saying that, and it wasn't like football analysis, Connor. It was. He said he looked at Nuno and he looked empty. And I was kind of like, yeah, I know what you mean. And they made the point that going from Mr. Marianakis maybe straight across to, I'll tell you what, it was Tony Pulis. It was Tony Pulis talking to Mick McCarthy. And they were saying that has Nuno gone from one job to the other too quickly and gone from one pretty hard. Well, I mean, let's be honest, any Premier League manager's job is like us mere mortals couldn't imagine the sheer pressure all of those guys are on every day of their lives. But particularly you can put working at Forest under Mr. Marinakis and the kind of ownership and the pressure at West Ham. And I think we've talked about it just constantly kind of simmering, and you're only ever a run of wins away. And you mentioned the home form, and I know we're waiting. We're very excited to talk about Leeds and Burnley and Sunderland.
We're giving the big build up here, aren't we?
But the set piece thing is ridiculous. And if I'm a hulking Welsh centre half who plays for Leeds, and I've got that elite sportsman mentality, I'm like, I am definitely scoring against these lot today. And there's a lot of intangible kind of psychological things, and the sort of experts that did the game. I mean, Connor, you'd have been right across it for your one Leeds stuff, were saying about how Leeds ran all over them as well. And, this is a Leeds side that we've spoken about in the Championship being kind of slow in the build-up and not necessarily a pressing machine. So you have a side that has iffy ownership issues, unhappy fans, can't make their home a fortress, concedes a set play every game, and isn't up with the physicality. Not great, is it?
It's not, and a stat to throw at you as well. West Ham's first five managers, the first West Ham managers with the first 5 games in charge, Nuno is second bottom ever. So yeah, and in that company you've got Harry Redknapp, you've got Avram Grant, Pellegrini, Pardew, Glenn Roeder. Yeah, so there's a few down there. But you are right with Nuno. You do wonder. A West Ham fan through to me, he said he might not fancy the job. He might have got in, looked at it, and gone, nah, don't fancy this. And he might be working for that compensation. I don't know how real that would be, but it could be a good year for Nuno. But the reason I mention that is because you look at the starting lineup, and if you guys caught it, I was really surprised. There was Irving, I think it was, in the midfield, who was nearly close to being loaned to Wrexham in the summer. Yeah, and you had, it was obviously Paqueta up front because they've not got that. I think a lot of West Ham fans wanted Callum Wilson up front, which would make maybe a little bit more sense after Paqueta really struggled against Brentford up top by himself. And then Scars as well, who was a young lad who plays left back, who was playing right back, who got torn apart against Brentford. He was so strange decisions from Nuno. And you look at and we all know a lot about this guy, Matías Fernandes, massive signing in the summer from Southampton. I think he's a really top player. He comes on and he gives West Ham something a little bit different. Potts off the bench as well, Magassa from Monaco, and you think you've got options off the bench here. I think that's why West Ham fans are a little bit confused at this moment in time. I think it's not like we haven't got options to change things. I get it if you didn't have those options, but you have got the options and you're not willing to start them. So it's interesting, isn't it, Matt? Interesting when it comes to Nuno, but maybe with what Ben was saying, there's something to that in terms of going from one sort of mad ownership and one mad football club to another, and dealing with that must be quite tricky.
Yeah, it just kind of shows the desperation. I think we're only 5 games in and it looks like Nuno's desperate, doesn't he? He's just trying everything he can at this point already. And the only thing propping them above Wolves in the table, by the way, is that 3-0 win at Forest, which at the time we said was an outlier. It was when Forest were obviously sacking Nuno, and the 3 goals came in the last couple of minutes. I think Callum Wilson did score in that one. So yeah, I'd like to see Wilson playing a bit more, actually. I know he's injury prone, but while he's fit, get him in that squad. Yeah, and it's a surprise because Nuno just seemed so in control at Forest last season, and they just built on that, didn't they? And they were just sort of going along so nicely whilst everyone else in the top half was sort of imploding at times, and Forest found themselves up to second at one point. But no, when momentum's not with you, it looks a desperate situation. And I like that analogy that Nuno looks empty because they've also lost.
It was definitely Pulis. Sorry, I misattribute. You know how like every quote gets given to Churchill or Oscar Wilde? I just give them all to Martin O'Neill, apparently, Matt.
But they've lost to Leeds and Sunderland as well, and then they've got Burnley next week.
Which is not a bank. It's not a banker anymore, Burnley, is it? Or maybe it wasn't ever a banker.
No. So they don't want to do the hat trick that Wolves have just done.
Well, we've got to talk about them as well, lads. Nottingham Forest. Ben, where do we start with that? I'm still a bit confused. They beat Porto midweek. Like Dyche had really got off to a good start. They go away to a very tricky bunch of cherries, and they lose down there, obviously. But I don't know. Are we taking too much from that? But I guess you're looking at Nottingham Forest again. They're on 5 points. They're in a bit of trouble now, aren't they? And that Leeds United game coming up in about 2 weeks looks absolutely massive.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of people say, and I see where they're coming from, you won't get relegated with Sean Dyche. I don't think that's an unreasonable take. I would throw at you, Connor, Bournemouth are really good.
I
And
know.
we've said that
Yeah.
a lot. And we said this from the word go. Thursday, the team I'm not allowed to mention got into the UEFA Cup and had to play Thursday nights and Sundays, and they got relegated. Okay, weren't as good as Forest are necessarily squad-wise now, but I'm willing to give this a bit of a pass in terms of, I mean, they beat Porto, didn't they? And I'm sure they'll get a bounce from Dyche. But Connor, you'll be licking your lips. You'll be across, won't you? Sturm Graz versus Forest in a trip. Where is Sturm Graz? Austria? Yeah.
Yep.
You'll be looking at that thinking, okay, they'll be vulnerable. It's going to be hard for them to play on Thursday and then on Sunday every time. But yeah, I'm going to give them a pass for now. I'm not as concerned, I think, as you sound, Con.
Yeah. I think it's the individuals, and naturally, I was once again going back to West Ham. I feel this whole show is on West Ham, but West Ham's individual quality, I don't think will keep them up. I think there needs to be like a cohesion within the side. There needs to be, a unit, leadership. I don't think it's all about individual quality. We've seen, very good sides get relegated who have very good individual quality. You have to be a team. There has to be leadership, the correct mentality. So I guess you could say with Nottingham Forest that, is there that? Have they got that in abundance? But I thought it was quite interesting when Morgan Gibbs-White effectively came out and said it feels like the shackles have been released a little bit. So I kind of look at that Bournemouth game. Bournemouth look amazing. They look absolutely fantastic. I still make this point that they're the best team to come to Elland Road so far. That's so good. So yeah, like you say, you give them a little bit of a pass, and Matt Dyche has proved time after time after time that home form in terms of keeping sides up is just absolutely massive, isn't it? And I think they'll probably be able to get a couple of very vital wins at home.
Yeah, I'll just echo what you said about Bournemouth, by the way, because they're second in the table. They've been absolutely fantastic. And they take on Man City this weekend, so that should be a tasty one, shouldn't it?
They won't defend at all, will they? Just go and attack them, which is just so good, Matt. Sorry.
No, that'd be a good game. It's interesting. I really think the schedule has messed things up for Forest, but I don't want that to be... It is difficult because obviously it is going to play its part, but it feels like Sean Dyche is now leaning on that because he said they were tired. But there is a lot of truth in that at the same time, because if you go back to the very start of the season, I know it's Nuno, but they beat Brentford 3-1 on the opening day. Second game, they go away to Palace, they draw 1-1. That's a really encouraging first two results. And you're thinking, okay, they're carrying on from where they've left off. Then September comes, then the European games come. And look at that, like 10 games with barely any wins. I know they've beaten Porto in there, but you've got to get results in the Premier League now. That is
Matt as well. Just to jump on that as well, they've built for this as well in the summer. One Yui, they've got him obviously, Calamuendo, Dominguez, Amari Hutchinson, Ryan Yates, Morato, the centre back. They've got Sangare, Jair Cunha, who they brought in, I believe, from Brazil. There's a lot of depth on that bench if he wants to rotate between Europe and the Premier League. And that's what balancing this really tough European act is all about. And he can't be coming out, I don't think. And because, I mean, is he just going to say this every time they potentially have a loss after a European match? It's going to be, but we're tired. Well, that's what you build a squad for.
Some of it, though, Connor, is he's speaking directly to the players because he loves his running stats, and it will all be about tackles and running over everything else. And he'll be trying to say to, obviously I've got a keen eye on Hutchinson. He did appear to make a couple of chances when he came in, but there's a few there where I think, I don't know what you think, Matt, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi, Hutchinson, you think great players. They're going to get on with Dyche telling him to cover the fullback. Don't you dare get ahead of the ball in that transition.
Well, I think they like leaders at the minute, Ben. We were saying about how like Nuno was so in control last season and the players are all great. But these are the hard times now when you're going on this massive run without a win and no one's really stepping forwards and grabbing.
We're about to talk about Ryan Yates, aren't you? I know.
I was going to throw him in.
Every manager loves him. Every manager loves him. But it's now about, I completely agree, Connor. Rotation, using that squad to its full effect, but you've got to prioritise the next Premier League game. So not this week, next week, when they've got Sturm Graz, of course, they want to go there and get something, but don't use up all your best players and go into the Leeds game with this tired excuse. That Leeds game next week at the City Ground
Massive.
is massive for Forest. They have to
Oh, mate.
prioritise that one.
I think as well, when you're looking at the team, I didn't actually look at the out and out, and Forest fans let me know if I'm miles off with this, but I look at, to be fair to Dyche, this team, I see Douglas Luiz, Elliot Anderson, and Doy, Gibbs White, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Jesus. That is an extremely attacking front six. And I think maybe he might have got the balance wrong a little bit in that midfield, because I would still deem Elliot Anderson as an 8, Douglas Luiz as an 8. And then looking on the bench, I'm seeing Nicholas Dominguez, who I think is a little bit more of a deeper midfielder, Ryan Yates, who's a deeper midfielder naturally. So maybe he kind of went into the game and unlike Dyche, which is normally can be quite conservative, he went for it, you know, in his sort of first Premier League game. So yeah, maybe stylistically you got it a little bit wrong. Who knows? Let us know what you think in the comment section below, guys. Okay, we're kind of strangely going back on ourselves here, but you know, we kind of needed to talk about Wolves and West Ham and Forest, all this sort of stuff. But the two teams we have spoken about play, two teams of which we talk a lot about. Should we start off with Burnley, lads, or should we move on to Leeds? Where do you want to start? One of you
Start Burnley, I think.
Start with Burnley. Yeah, we need to get, and look, I've had to say to the lads, sometimes maybe we don't focus on Burnley enough, and we do apologise that we're trying to cram in as many clubs as possible into sort of a 30-40 minute recording. Ben, we have to give them some serious flowers, don't we? A very impressive win. It felt like they were holding out for that draw, and then they get that counter-attack, win it at the end. We were just talking off air a little bit about Zian Fleming as well, getting 2 goals, one of them which was an outrageous finish. Robin van Persie-esque against Aston Villa. Lovely finish, side foot as well. The keeper's coming out to him. The technique to do that is very, very difficult to do, maybe showing a few Premier League credentials there. And it's another Burnley getting more points on the board against teams that they are supposed to get points on the board against, which is important context.
And I mean, this is just weird for Matt and I discussed the kind of promoted teams each and every week last season, and we never got to talk about 3 wins in the same round and back-to-back wins for Burnley as well, which is just absolute gold dust. If the total's going to be mid to low 30s, it might, someone might get caught with their pants down here, where you think compared to the last few years, they're doing really, really well. And then that total just raises up more towards 38 points. And you think, oh, they've done well. We all said they only needed 10 wins. And then all of a sudden you need 11 and a few more points. So great. I have to, sorry, Burnley fans, throw in the caveat that Wolves are horrible for all the reasons that the boys have just said. But you've got to go there, win, take advantage, and winning away is fantastic. On Fleming, massive name drop, but I did discuss this with Super Kevin Phillips in terms of finishing. Can you get 2 out of 3 of power, accuracy, or hitting it early and catching the keeper out? And Fleming, oh my God, give me a big tick in the box for hitting it early and accuracy there. Yeah, what a goal. And you've been a bit worried, Connor, haven't you, that, have they got a good enough goal scorer in the Premier League to get 8-10 goals? Because Jaden Anthony's been scoring all the goals, and the lad from Chelsea hasn't been fit, has he? So really, really encouraging. 10 points from 9 games isn't quite the magic number yet, but it could be.
Don't think it will be with the fixture next up, but
okay. I thought you said you were giving them flowers.
Sorry.
You're urinating on their flowers.
Sorry, so I'm just saying. Could be wrong. But
I hope we are, and yeah, just excellent, and not wanting to damn with faint praise. Just give me hope, and they're giving me hope at the moment.
Yeah, and there's I didn't think, I thought on the bat, I think you were quite right, Ben, on the balance of the game. I was looking at, I thought Burnley had a really good start to the game.
Big save right at the end, Connor. Sorry, as well.
Massive.
Taking the lead. Yeah,
I thought he was. This is literally what I was about to get on to.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
30 minutes. You shut up next time. 30 minutes. Unbelievable. Wolves, I thought, were dominant from that point onwards, but we've got to talk about Martin Dubravka this season. I mean, look, we've got Robin Roofs. We've got, Leeds been a bit more inconsistent because Perry's been out, but he had a good game against West Ham. But maybe we focused a little bit on Robin, and I think Robin Roofs has been excellent. But Martin Dubravka for Burnley this season, Matt, he's been completely rejuvenated. He looks like he's one of the outstanding goalkeepers at this moment in time in the Premier League. He really is. And I thought in that game in particular, potentially maybe Dubravka got them out of a very sticky situation still against Wolves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just echo what you said about the Fleming goal as well. What a goal. But yeah, that's that save right at the end. I mean, you thought when Burnley had scored to make it 3-2 in the 95th minute, that should have been the end of the drama, but that would have been incredible if that had gone in. But it kind of stuck to his hand, didn't it? It's like he had glue on his gloves. But he's been really good. Safe pair of hands at the back. And Burnley are doing really well in these head-to-head games because they've beaten Sunderland, they've beaten Leeds, they've beaten Wolves. They probably do need to beat a couple of the mid-tablers. Well, I suppose Sunderland are in the top half, aren't they? But you know who I mean, like Everton. You've got to pick up a
point against Forest too. Point against Forest too.
That's true. You got the point there. And I think some people might get a bit confused, I suppose, when we're always talking about a point per game. And you might have thought, well, a point away at Wolves is a decent result. But I'm really glad that Burnley smelt blood and really pushed and got the win at the end. That goal right at the end could be crucial, not just for the extra 2 points, but it gives them a lift. It gives them a real chance. They're above a point per game. They're above the bottom three. And then, obviously, the more difficult games come. Arsenal at home at the weekend. Is
Chelsea, I think they've got Chelsea coming up as well, haven't they?
Oh, actually, you know what? They've had such a hard start as well, haven't they? So that's something we need to highlight. You know, the fact that they're above a point per game after that really difficult start. Interestingly, obviously, they've played Sunderland and Leeds at home, so they have got to flip those in the second half of the season and go to those and got to get a few more away wins. But to get their first away win here, crucial. And Scotty Parker deserves credit because, like I say, the management in these head-to-head games, he's just getting on the right side of them, isn't he?
I don't think you're allowed to give Scott Parker credit on the internet, are you? No, he never gets any, does he? Bless him, Scotty.
Yeah, he was getting battered for that second half approach. I was keeping tabs on the old Twitter Clarets hashtag. He was getting hammered for some of his substitutions. They weren't impressed with him, but stays in the game. Obviously, they responded, didn't they, Wolves? But
What's your take on that, Connor? Because I speak to Bournemouth and Fulham fans who are like, oh yeah, squad got us promoted. He didn't do anything really, did he? I'm like, come on, guys continually gets promoted out of the championship.
Is it the same thing, the rhetoric with Farker as well? Farker and Parker are quite similar, aren't they, in terms of just
Farker gets less of it. I think Parker, Connor,
but
I do think, I don't want to go off on a socio-political rant here, but I think there's class prejudice in the way certain football managers speak and the accent that they use and how their intelligence is judged thereafter. And when Scotty Parker comes in with his thick working class London accent, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, Rooney got the same, but he was dreadful. So there you go.
That's true. I need to start speaking a little bit more properly, and maybe I'll get more subscribers. Who knows?
Mate, I'm from Ipswich. I'm screwed from the beginning. Come on.
No, but credit to Burnley. I think we can all say maybe it's one of those things as well where they just. I think Matt was just mentioning there the reversal fixtures, but you can see Burnley going to Sunderland, Burnley going to Leeds, and you can still see Burnley making it extremely difficult again. And maybe it's just one of those where, like, Burnley are the real problem for sides in and around the bottom, and maybe they're the most successful, Matt. It feels like that's kind of how they're going to set up, doesn't it? And they will be probably the toughest to beat for the teams in and around the bottom.
Yeah, I know they've been written off by virtually everyone. And I think I said last week that we need to put more respect on them and take them more seriously. And then I did back Wolves to beat them and they got proven wrong. So there you go. But they thrive on that, don't they? Not that they'll be paying too much attention to what everyone else has to say about them, but they're just very hard to beat, aren't they? And even against Arsenal, I expect Arsenal to win, but you can imagine them keeping it tight and, it'd be like a 1-0. And who knows, with a minute to go, could Burnley go and snatch an equaliser? They're just very good at taking something out of the games where there's fine margins in them.
Even with these little advantages they've got, and they've got a big advantage over Wolves. They've got an 8-point advantage. Remember, you need to finish above 3 teams, not just one. Still going to be so hard to finish above Fulham, Forest, West Ham, Wolves, who are all below them at the moment. And I know we're being hyper positive today. That's still something that's going to be tricky, Connor, to keep them all at arm's length, especially teams that have finished much, much higher in Fulham and Forest down there.
On that as well, by the way, we haven't spoken a lot about Fulham. Are we sort of thinking they'll pull away? Is this the bottom of their trough at the minute? Because they've had a difficult run, but could we see them?
I'd be very
I think
surprised.
we diary them in for about 3 weeks, don't we, Connor? And if they're there, then I'll be like,
that's when we'll start abusing them. But I think I still look at Marco Silva. Not for me. No, I mean maybe that's silly of me, but yeah, I just think the individual quality is there.
They play Wolves at the weekend, by the way. If they lose that, then it gets interesting.
Fair point.
Does indeed, yeah. Right. Sunderland! Unbelievable. That's what we've got to say. I mean, I think
we are going to get to Leeds, aren't we, Connor? I'm itching to hear you give Brendan Aronson his flowers, but we can talk about Sunderland if you want.
Yeah, we'll go Sunderland first and then we'll get to Leeds. Just keeping that engagement there for the Leeds fans. Just waiting until the end. Right, okay. Sunderland. I don't know what. I don't really know what more to say anymore.
I've got a good framing for you, Connor.
Go on.
I was at Ipswich West Brom and we were doing a Blue Monday Live event.
Yeah.
And someone came up to me and said, Ben, have you seen the Sunderland score? And I'm like, no. He said they've won away at Chelsea and won in the 93rd minute, and they're second in the Premier League, which they were at that point. I know Bournemouth have kind of taken that. So you're right that there is nothing else we can say. And I think even the Sunderland fans were like, it's been a great start. Off we go to Chelsea to lose. But incredible. And the thing is, it doesn't feel horribly fluky. I know they had a difficult start to the game, but so he went to like a 5 at the back, but then still tried to get Trey Hume into a like midfield area for when they had the ball, from my understanding. And then the subs have been used brilliantly as well. And I think they're even pouring scorn on the AFCON thing, because Sunderland fans, correct me, I think there's only 2 or 3 in the starting lineup that
I like it. He says, Sunderland fans, correct me. They will. They will.
Okay, let me rephrase. Sunderland fans, tell me which players in that starting lineup. I know we can get all the nationalities up, but I don't know whether those clubs, those countries are actually in AFCON or how far they'll go. But yeah, talk about everything coming up roses, Connor. Well played, Sunderland. I bloody love it as well when a promoted team goes to a Champions League team and wins away. So good.
Yeah, I can't, I'll be honest, I can't think of a newly promoted side, because I feel like maybe with Leeds and Sheffield United, it was a bit more steady, and obviously
Swansea, Brendan Rodgers?
Maybe.
They're really good, weren't they?
I just can't. Reading 05, under Koppel, maybe.
A team from Suffolk in the year 2000 that I'm not allowed to mention.
Yeah, interestingly enough, that team from Suffolk finished the season on 22 points, and Sunderland are currently on 17.
Oh, what, last season?
So, yeah, but it just feels at this moment in time that everything's clicking. I just think, I keep saying this and it's boring, they're really difficult to beat. I just think they're a really tough team to beat. And I think you're kind of looking at Sunderland now, and maybe the vernacular, whatever it was last week, we're saying, Matt, that, Sunderland, Burnley, Leeds, Forest, Wolves. I'm now just in the conversation of and the sort of rhetoric in my head of thinking, I'm not including Sunderland in that conversation anymore. I'm kind of there now, and I feel, for what date are we on recording this? The 29th of October. It's a staggering achievement, and we're not saying it's done, and we're not doing that, but we've got to get, I guess, a little bit giddier about Sunderland with the newly promoted sides, because this start it's incredible, isn't it, Matt? It's and you kind of run out of superlatives.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, it's their best result of the season. Obviously, to go away to Chelsea, I think they've beaten teams that are in the bottom half so far this season. Good results, but this one stands out and feels like we can. I honestly, first of all, I'm actually not that surprised. I thought it might actually be a draw, but then Sunderland have snatched it. But quite a bit of symmetry here between this game and what they did in the playoffs against Coventry and Sheffield United, sort of snatching it with late goals. Ding. Hang on, that's only once I've said Coventry. But we can copy and paste almost every week. Roof's in goal, brilliant. Xhaka, fantastic. Isidore still chipping in with goals as well. So he's proven to be a Premier League striker now. And we talk about front loading those points. I know, we could talk about AFCON, but like Ben says, might not even be that much of a damaging effect on Sunderland. I thought of a good example quite a few years ago. I think it was Hull, 2008, 2009. Do you remember that season? Phil Brown came up, 28 points at Christmas. Finished the season on 36 and still survived. So they picked up like 77% of their points before Christmas. So we're saying, even if Sunderland do have a tragic second half of the season, they could still fall over the finish line. Do you know what I mean? So they've loaded the points up so well. And you know, you go into Everton. I mean, Everton at home, I think Sunderland will definitely fancy their chances. But then it's after that they've got Arsenal at home, which once again free hit. But the way Sunderland are going, who knows?
Yeah, as I say, we've got to give them the flowers for this. Again, I feel there's so many overperformers in that side. I think that's the credit to what Matt was just saying there as well, Ben. We were huge fans of Isidore. He's come up. He's
scored from a long throw, which seems to be so vital.
That's nowadays, isn't it? Yeah,
nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah. I think they've respected in terms of recruitment the physicality and athleticism of the Premier League, which I think you've got to do nowadays. Which I think maybe the 6 that came up previously didn't respect enough the physicality and the athleticism of the Premier League. And I think overall, when you've got like Brian Broby as an option going forward, you've got Mienda, you've got Isidore, you've got players who are really impactful. Or Broby not as much yet, but I thought his pass selection for that Talby goal was excellent. He delayed, he held his man off, and then played a really nice weighted ball. He's clearly got a little bit of class as well. It just seems like every player is really acclimatized, and we've got to talk about Bris as well. Like, to do what he's doing right now, in terms of there's a bit of pragmatism there, gelling all of that squad together.
How could he have done any better, Connor, if you freeze from last summer taking over? What could he have done better in this managerial job?
A lot of people as well will say, Leeds and Burnley finished 24 points ahead of Sunderland, and they'll say, and I've heard this quite a bit, to be fair, Sunderland spent 150 plus million. But they had to. They had to. They had weaker sides than Burnley and Leeds United last season, so they had to spend that. And obviously, they had they were able to sell Tom Watson, they were able to sell Bellingham, which helped when it came to that as well. But overall, it just seems to be the perfect blend right now, Ben. Completely from back to forward, you've got a back two in Alderete, and you've got. I think Matt said it a few times. You've got Alderete, you've got Ballard, you've got Michele, who are all performing really well as centre-backs. You've got players off the bench who are having an impact. You've got players up top who are scoring. You've got a really good midfield balance when it's Sadiki and it's Xhaka and it's Habib Diarra. I don't know. Are you kind of that opinion now, Ben, where you're thinking to yourself, and you're gonna have to put your flag in the sand a bit here, but are you thinking to yourself, I don't really include Sunderland in that relegation conversation anymore, or is that too early?
I mean, never say never doing this job and having your opinions put on the internet every day. You can come a cropper really, really quickly. What they have done in terms of expanding on Matt's point is the margin for error is now so big, and it's not just what that does, it's the pressure then that puts on the teams that are chasing you. But in terms of Bris, I mean, talk about the in-game stuff, but if you said to Sunderland fans, right, this bloke's going to come in, you're going to have a ridiculously good start in the Championship. Two of the parachute teams are going to come past you and take automatic promotion. And by the way, the other team you're going to finish behind has also got parachute payments. This manager is then going to kind of close down before the playoffs, go on a losing run to set up, make a plan to beat Matt's lot, win the final against the odds. You're then going to sell a couple of the bright young things and spend brilliantly, and then you're going to have an outstanding start. I just don't know who in English football in the whole 92 has done a better managerial job over a 18-month period.
And Ben, let's not forget when he took over Sunderland was 16th.
Yeah.
And they finished 4th that season, obviously, and then
a right mess with Mick Beale. And, I can't even think, who took the team for the rest of the season? I can't remember.
Was it Dodds? Was it Dodds?
That was Mike Dodds, wasn't it? Yeah, it's like the interim guy, wasn't it?
For me, the best thing about him is I don't think he's got a set tactic at all.
That's what I was going to say about in-game.
What's his I don't know what his style of play is, which I think is great in a sense because it makes you completely unpredictable. And I think that's it's applauded to him. If he wants to make an early substitution, and I remember this as a Leeds fan with Bielsa, he will do it. He's aggressive like that, and I love that. It shows real leadership, I think. I think he clearly trusts and understands his sort of backroom tactical staff, which apparently he relies on a hell of a lot as well. And that's not to say he's not very accomplished, but he's got a really good group behind him. And I think it's interesting with Sunderland as well. At the weekend, I saw a Sunderland side when I was watching that game back who had like 35% possession, but they were in the game and they were controlling moments. And I thought to myself, normally where as football fans, the stigma is, well, if you've not got 80%, if an opposition has got sort of 70% of the ball, they must be dominant. But it doesn't work like that in football. Football is based on moments, isn't it? And it felt like Sunderland did have a lot of moments in that game. So it's fascinating how he works as a coach for me.
That was what I was going to say. Sorry, mate, I'm coming in a second. About stylistically, is that he's aware of the opponents, but in a good way, without, I used to get very fed up of watching Mick McCarthy teams, because you could say whatever formation the opponents play, he's going to double up, go man for man, and just try and stop the opponent. Whereas I remember seeing Sunderland play Middlesbrough under Carrick, and, we can all categorise Middlesbrough under Carrick as maybe being a bit flaky and overplaying. So if you set up compact and narrow and sit and spring, you'll beat them. And that's exactly what he did. And, the playoffs we've spoken about a bit last year. And I watched his presser post-game prepping for this show. And he said, no, I wasn't panicked. This was the game plan that we had. And we knew we'd suffer in the first 15, and we might have to rely on the three centre backs to head it away, and we knew we had to deal with Garnacho, etc., and we had the extra body at the back. So I think he's just very astute game on game, and not in a I'm gonna sit behind the ball and just try and like you're saying, Connor, where you might get a clean sheet but doesn't feel massively viable or in control. Sorry, Matt, have your say.
No, and yeah, I agree. The point I'm really impressed with as well is the underlying numbers of this Chelsea win. So if you just looked at the opposition and the fact that Sunderland have snatched it in the 93rd minute, you might think this is a complete smash and grab, which to an extent it is, but it's also the fact that Sunderland have created a better XG and they've created more dangerous chances than Chelsea in this game. Chelsea didn't even register 1 XG in this. So although Chelsea had 70% of the ball, Sunderland did not let them in.
No, you bang on. I think one thing I'd like to touch on as well, and I think we rated this pre-season. I think we did. And you guys might be able to, so kind of maybe focus on it a little bit. But I think the big thing as well, just taking it away from Bris, is having a player like Xhaka on the pitch. I think it's very similar. I think we touched on it a little bit with having Henderson on the pitch for Brentford. I think you've seen a massive impact there, of which I probably didn't understand it would be as well. But having that guy on the pitch who effectively is a manager on the pitch. And I think you're seeing that a lot now. And maybe people don't really look at leadership and look at, dressing room influence, impact all the time. But I think he's just massive. You just see him coordinating everything on the pitch, constantly talking. You're seeing a very similar thing with Henderson at Brentford. And, it's nice to see that sort of experience and leadership get a bit of plaudits. And yeah, it just feels like the perfect blend at this moment in time. So Sunderland for the league, hey, Ben? Sunderland for the league.
I mean, they're closer to that in relegation. Just quickly on Xhaka as well. It's not like he's Jan Molby just kind of stood in the centre circle, not moving, but pinging the ball about and controlling it. I think his running stats, I forget what the stat I heard was, but going into the Chelsea game, he was topping some running stats for the entire division as well. So this is not a bloke who's been brought in to play 60 minutes and, just mentor some people Monday to Friday and not show up on Saturday. Yeah, brilliant signing.
And I think just to close off as well, I think it's a football thing that we need to sort of get used to, maybe with how it's working nowadays as well, with the utilization of set pieces, that you can actually work against the ball and have control. That can happen, and maybe Sunderland perfectly displayed that against Chelsea. Right, here we go. A win. I'm not gonna say, Ben, you take this away, Matt, you take this away, but I will, of course. I've waffled on about Leeds United too much anyway. 2 goals in 15 minutes. Leeds actually scoring first, which was quite nice. I think we've gone behind 6 times this season, of which it gives you a bit of a task in the Premier League, as we all know. 2-1 win. Ben, I thought it was deserved. Slightly frustrating, maybe in the second half, how Leeds sort of stepped back a little bit. Farke came out after the game and said, look, we didn't have, there's a lot more illnesses than you actually knew within the camp. Okafor had to come off, Harrison came on, which I think naturally makes Leeds a little bit more defensive anyway. But that first half, Leeds probably could have had 3, 4, 5. We are, like, as we've spoken about with Wolves and Burnley, it is Wolves and it is West Ham. The athleticism in the midfield, as Carrick has mentioned on Monday Night Football, is just not apparent, and Leeds fully took control of that. Harrison and Purdue looking like, Petit and Zidane, France 98 at some stages. But yeah, Ben, a really good result for Leeds. And when you look at how it panned out over the weekend, including the newly promoted sides and the results, it's a big win for Leeds, wasn't it?
It's a lovely way to kick it all off, wasn't it? And we cannot forget, even though the 3 EFL ex-teams from the EFL last season are doing real, it's really hard to win in the Premier League. And I don't underestimate going 2-0 up as well when you're a promoted team. It's so hard when those elite substitutes are coming. You've only got a 1-goal lead. So really, really pleased that, then that might have to be the case in hopefully a few more Leeds wins like that this season. You've got to get that second goal, which was great. I think Calvert-Lewin seems to be becoming more effective week on week, albeit we need to throw the caveat in against the quite passive, not very good West Ham team, but we've got to accentuate the positives here. Goalie solved, fingers crossed now. Big strapping centre half in the team, the one you were talking about, Connor, as well. And yeah, really, really happy for Daniel Farke. We spoke about Nuno being a manager working in a tricky environment. I think, Connor, at your most lucid moments, you would admit it's a difficult gig that Leeds with the intensity, and he seems to be in a good spot. And I'll pass it over to Matt.
Yeah, and ding, 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 11 points inside 10 games, Connor. What are we saying? I think I saw Match of the Day. You saying that's stat you talk about, Connor. No one's been relegated in, what is it, the last 5-10 years?
Did you see the Leeds fans' reaction to that? Ultimately,
were they saying if anyone's going to do it, it'll be Leeds?
Why the fuck have you put that out there?
Does that not exemplify my point about the anxiety level of this fan base here?
Yeah, well, I mean, you two have covered Leeds for years as well. With your content and stuff. Leeds is a highly emotional club, but to be fair, it's not
good and bad,
but on the pitch it's not, it's kind of amplified that with what they put us through. But I think the reason we mentioned that as well, it was because there was a couple of stats broken with Jesse Marsh, about Leeds staying up at a certain point, and it was when Leeds got to the the season before, went up with Rutter and Archie Gray. I think 92 points. It was the most amount of points for a team not to get promoted, and we broke that stat. And it's stuff like that. So I think there's a bit of anxiety with Leeds fans when it comes to these records. But yeah, it was quite funny. Where you've jinxed us, why have you said that, and all this sort of stuff. But I think a lot of the underlying stats are really important with Leeds as well. The recoveries in the final third, Leeds I think a third in the division. They might be top actually. Recoveries in the final third in terms of a press and then getting that ball higher up. I think we're running. I think we're running at the minute, the third highest in the Premier League, just behind Arsenal and Man City. Leeds are in front of Newcastle and Bournemouth. I think they sound wishy-washy things and all this sort of stuff, but it is really important to respect the physicality and athleticism of the Premier League, Ben. And it just feels like with Leeds, maybe we'll hit into gear at some point where we're able to max our XG output and all this sort of stuff. That's obviously very dependent on what's going on up top. But I was really pleased on Friday. I thought Leeds got it right everywhere. I thought there was dominant performances everywhere, but it's just maybe about those last sort of 10 minutes with Leeds where goals are going in. But
they had to play like 15 minutes stoppage time in the first half, and they survived, that late goal going in at the end. So for all the emotional anxiety. Oh, we're going to cock this up now. No, they didn't. They did not. They went ahead and won the game.
Do you take the? I mean, Leeds are currently 4th on the expected points table, which takes in all this. Obviously, you know, the statistics that we look at every day when it comes to XG against. It feels like you're hoping that that's going to come to a point of which Leeds are then going to start getting a little bit, you know, buoyed by this, and hopefully the underlying numbers, Matt, are going to be really imperative when it comes to not just having the performances, but then having that empirical evidence to back that up.
I was going to say as well, the anxiety of the Leeds United fans isn't taking over at Ellen Road because the home form's been really good, hasn't it, Connor?
Yeah.
Timings of goals, as Ben touched on, to get 2 inside 15 minutes, great. And then, like you say, they're creating good chances. Once again, they came out on top of this one with the better numbers and obviously got the win as well. I'm going to say about Perry coming back in, you want him to get a run of games because we're saying that's...
there, Matt. Leaving there now, yeah.
Exactly. Dubravka, Roofs, you want Perry now at Leeds United. And we'll come on to this in a second, Connor. Maybe it would have been goal of the season from Brendan Aronson.
Wow.
That would have been quite a goal. And we said this was a must win, and I'm definitely doubling down on that now because I'm looking at the fixtures. Connor, look at that run of fixtures now between now and Christmas. That's a rotten run, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And that's the kind of, I guess, when I'm looking at these data points and all this sort of stuff, I am looking at that and I'm thinking, oh, God. But it feels like you're going to have to get these unexpected wins. And I mentioned this the other day. I was saying, you know, you're going to have to do what Sunderland have done against Chelsea. You're going to have to replicate some of these. It can't all be against the teams that you're expected to beat, because we were expected to beat Burnley. It didn't happen. You know, Sunderland were expected to beat Burnley. That didn't happen either. So they've had to recover that 3-point deficit with other wins. And I think Leeds have got to do that. It's not, you know, Brighton at the weekend, it's going to be a horrible task. We know how fantastic Brighton are. They've been, I think, you know, at home as well. They've got an insane record. They've already beaten City there. They've beaten Newcastle there. And then you look at Forest, as Ben was saying, Leeds they've got to take something from that, because then you go into runs of, I think it's Liverpool twice, Chelsea, Man City, and it's welcome to the Premier League, isn't it? So, but you might have to nick when Leeds have got back-to-back against Chelsea and Liverpool. Could there be where we make it so difficult for them, and we have made it difficult for Spurs, for Bournemouth, Everton at points this season? I know those two are a different task completely. Tottenham as well, you can throw into there. But you're going to have to get some of these unexpected wins, Ben, and Ellen Road is going to have to be that fortress, not just against the lower teams.
I forget who it was. I think one of the staff on one of the teams was complaining that it went over the line at Ellen Road being spiked. And if I'm a Leeds fan, I'm like, great, let's turn that up to 12 then. If it's already up to 11, we're going to make it nice and comfortable for your, 30 squad of international players, and, just give you the 3 points. It's like, behave. But do you think, Connor, that this kind of feeling that's gone now from last year, that it was impossible for, an ex-EFL team to go and beat anyone in the middle, let alone an elite team? Do you think that will now kind of permeate, just around the division, that no, it's not impossible that Leeds can beat, I don't know, Aston Villa? Liverpool are in horrible form. It's not impossible. I just wonder whether that becomes an intangible thing, where last season it was clearly, if you're in the game against Ipswich, Leicester or Southampton, you can beat them. You might have to hold out until the last minute, but you'll definitely beat them. I don't know. I just wonder whether that just becomes part of the story this season. And hopefully, fingers crossed, because everyone needs to double down and stick with this, because, don't moan about it when they're relegated and then, not back the EFL teams during the season. But it's going okay, isn't it? And I just wonder whether, you talk about these honking impossible runs, whether, there might be the odd win in there that we can now hopefully bank on.
Yeah, and I think as well, set pieces coming back. I keep talking about this, but the physicality side of the game, it's almost cyclical, isn't it? It feels like we've gone back to maybe pre-Guardiola to a certain extent, and that's obviously why he's struggling at this moment in time as well, because it feels like, it's a flat back four of just centre backs and long throws and set pieces. And it feels like now that is definitely a huge advantage for the teams coming up. It feels, because obviously, these teams at the top are going to be able to replicate that, and they have physical players and athletic players, but it feels like they're having to sort of changed their style in an essence as well to match up against these sides doing and
Is
focusing
this
on
a
set
really
pieces.
polite way, Matt, of him saying we're bringing them down to our level?
Yeah. And that's what you have to, though, don't you? That's what you have to do. And it may be that.
And they're buying it hook, line, and sinker, and I bloody love it.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. You know, when you look at West Ham at the weekend and a lack of physicality and athleticism, let's bully them. Let's absolutely bully them. And I think now the Premier League campaign that we have, you can do that, and it feels like it's ebbing and flowing a little bit more. What I will say as well is I don't really think there's. I don't know about you guys yet. I don't think there's consistency in the Premier League whatsoever. I think there's one team at the top of the table which is providing that consistency. I don't think the rest are able to do that yet. So I think that's
what a team Sunderland are. Hey?
But and maybe that's helping the table, as I say, ebb and flow a little bit as well. So I think all good. Still not there yet, though, with Leeds. Have to say, very happy with the points total yet. And I mentioned to you guys that BBC stat was reverberating around my head for a few weeks. That sort of goes out the window when you come up against your big boys and you're talking about points per game and all that sort of stuff. But it's given me enough in these first 9 to maybe think that we can make it extremely difficult for these teams and we can maybe nick points off them on our best day and if they had their worst day, which is important. If I'm a newly promoted side, though, I think the aim is 42 points. The aim is 42 points. I think that's what you should be aiming for because that's the highest any relegated club has ever got. It might have been Sunderland, I can't remember. But
West
I think
Ham probably
was it West Ham. But I think the target will probably be in around 37, 38. Normally the team finishing in 18th average is about 35. But I would be aiming for that 42 point mark. And I think that's going to keep you up. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. So yeah, Ben, you were saying at the very start anyway that you think that there's did you say there's going to be one out of those who's going down in your head? Who is that?
I was saying I feel more confident than I have, and it's not just because I want to enjoy doing this show with you guys every week. That you come on and you're like, we'll be positive, but you could still be sat here and all three of them go down. But come on, this is beyond my wildest expectations. And I've got to disappear in a minute, boys. But just to round it out on Leeds, it also sends a signal to the 49ers group that in January,
huge,
we can do this. Give Daniel Farke a couple more players and he'll keep you in the Premier League. It gives that signal, Matt, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Yeah. I mean, it could be, but also it might work the other way. Those teams really down there, West Ham, Wolves, Forest, they might think we're going to have to go big in January as well now. So it's all lining up for a fascinating relegation battle, I must say.
Indeed it is. Guys, make sure you subscribe to these two fine gentlemen on either side of me. This is Three at the Back, a show that we do every single week, focusing on the newly promoted sides and others in and around the bottom, because too many podcasts and all this sort of stuff focus on the big teams that we want to focus on, maybe the lesser teams, sort of disrupting the apple cart at the top. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. These fellas, links will be in the description below as always. And in the title, my name's Conor McGilligan. That is Benjamin Bloom. That is Matt SB. This is Three at the Back. See you in a bit. Cheers.